everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new, my name is Dina. Welcome to the family. I actually had someone request on one of my previous Lovebird videos for me to make a video all about like lovebirds, their characteristics, a little bit about them, just so that they knew if they wanted to get lovebirds themselves, you know, a little bit about them. So I put together a bunch of notes. I'm gonna keep these out so I don't forget what I'm gonna be talking about, but basically I have a whole bunch of information here that I've gathered from either like my research when I got lovebirds or just things that I've, you know, found out through having lovebirds, because once you have a type of animal, obviously you learn more about them and, you know, their personalities and just like characteristics of that type of animal. I'm filming in my room and not with my birds just because it is currently really early and the sun's barely even up right now, and unfortunately I can't bring my studio lights out into the hall because my birds will flip out. Like, it scares them so much. They do not like my studio lights. They're kind of like that with everything at first though, to be honest. Like, they would become desensitized. They were like that with the vacuum cleaner. Like, but I still don't want to put them through that, and I mean, they wouldn't be themselves on camera anyways because they'd be hiding in a corner from my studio lights. So we're gonna film here, but obviously I'll like put some b-roll, like birdie b-roll in there for you guys so you have some cute little bird videos while I talk. Okay, so first of all, what type of lovebird do I have? I have the peach-faced lovebirds. Now, there are so many different types of lovebirds out there. It honestly kind of depends on what area or region they are from. They are native to Africa and Madagascar, and it depends again on the lovebird species. So there's so many different species of lovebirds. Lovebirds actually do fall under the parrot family, which is interesting because not a lot of people know that. So the first thing I want to bring up, and now this is for clearly lovebirds, but it honestly kind of falls under the category of having any sort of bird, is if you are looking to have a bird, especially for first-time bird owners that have never had a bird before, what you need to understand is that a bird needs time to exercise. They need space to exercise, to fly around, to move. They also need a lot of out of cage time. So if you're someone who just wants to get a bird to keep it in the cage all the time and you don't have time to play with it, please don't get a bird. As you guys can see, I'll put like a little video or something for you guys, and you can also see clearly in like my first all about my lovebirds video, but I have a fairly large cage. Now, it's a pretty large cage for the size of bird that I have. Some people think, oh, it's a smaller bird, you can get a smaller cage. Please don't do this. Like, it doesn't matter if your bird's small, it still deserves a lot of space, and I like to have a lot of space for them to play and move around and to fly back and forth in the cage. Like, they're able to do that. Lovebirds are very, very energetic. They love exercise, they love flying, they love playing, so they're gonna need a lot of space. They're gonna need a lot of toys to keep them really busy. You want to keep their mind active. I make sure to let my birds out of the cage as much as I can because I love that playtime, especially my lovebird Lola. Now, Lola is a he. The breeder got that wrong, so he's stuck with a girl name, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about this kind of stuff in a second. He's the most manliest Lola there ever was. I also call him my handsome boy very often, so he's okay with it. But Lola loves to fly. Thanks, Lola. Yes! Are you gonna fly for us, Lola? Are you gonna fly for us? Let's see your tricks. Let's see, bud. Are you gonna fly for us? Yeah, that's my boy. Let's see your tricks. Yeah, that's my boy. Show me your tricks. He swoops down like just like inches from the ground, and he lands up on the door of the bathroom, like way at the other end of the hallway, and he goes back and he does the swoop and he does like these figure eights. Like, he gets so excited, and it's so cute because I'll like hype him up. I'm like, oh, look at you, Lola. I'm like, let's see your flying tricks, let's see your fancy flying tricks. And he gets like, he'll be like on top of the door of the bathroom, and he'll literally be shaking, like his wings will be shaking because he's all excited that I'm getting him all hyped up, and then he'll do it again, and then I'm like, let me see your fancy flying tricks, and he's like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna show you again. He does it again. I know I sound like I'm a crazy bird mom because I am. Chico, she loves to fly too, but she's definitely like a mama bird. Like, she just wants to play in boxes and build things and stuff, and she loves to scavenge and do that kind of thing, and like they'll fly together and she'll 100% get into it. But like, he loves flying like no other bird I've ever had. Like, he loves it. it. That turned into a long rant and a story, but I just thought it was so cute and I just really wanted to share it with you. But yes, please give your birds lots of space and lots of fly time. Now, when you let your birds out to fly, you are going to want to make sure that it is safe for them. I have like a whole routine on how I basically bird proof my area for them to fly in, because there's things that they can get into that are dangerous. For one, birds tend to fly into windows. So the windows in my hallway have curtains in front of them, so that prevents them from flying into that. The curtain in my bathroom is actually really fragile and they tend to get their claws stuck in it, so I take it down, but then what I do is I tie a sheet up that prevents them from actually hitting the window. So they actually like the sheet. They'll like climb up and down it and they find it's really fun, so like that's good. But yeah, you don't want any big windows where they can fly into them and possibly hurt themselves. Another thing, if you're letting your birds out to fly, you really should be like watching them the whole time. Like, I never let my birds out and don't supervise. I'm always watching, making sure they don't get into anything they shouldn't. They are chewers, okay guys? So you're gonna wanna make sure you have a lot of chew toys in your bird cage, and I'm gonna get a little bit more into the details of what's in my bird cage in a little while, but you wanna make sure you're watching them. They like to chew on the trim of our doors, and if you're gonna have to accept, honestly, that if you have a bird, you're probably gonna have some house damage, and you're gonna have to like try and stop them every like 20 minutes, be like, hey, Kate, like, please stop doing that. Like, no, don't do it. But you don't want to yell at your bird. Never yell at your bird, because that's gonna like really prevent them from trusting you, and it just scares them. So I just kind of try and like, I'm like, hey, 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 and I like kind of get my hand in the way. I'm like, no, 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 and I kind of like shoo them over a little bit, but I never yell at my birds. With that being said, there are some things that I do to prevent them from chewing things they shouldn't. So for example, my mom has a chin-up bar at her door. They love to perch on it, but what I do is I kind of make it less accessible for them, because the bar has this like foam covering and they like to chew on the foam, which chewing on foam probably isn't very good for them. Plus it's my mom's chin-up bar. I'm trying to protect it. So what I do is I actually wrap a towel around it, and they have this little like hammock type toy, like a tent. I guess it's, yeah, more of a tent. And what I do is I like attach it to the towel and I hang it down. So it's kind of like more of a game, like they'll land on it and then they'll climb through the tent and they'll like fly back and forth. And it's just like another fun, exciting toy for them to play with, but it prevents them from chewing on that foam. And then also I prevent them from going downstairs, because downstairs has a lot of windows. On top of that, there's also the kitchen, which has a lot of different things that they can get into, whether it is a loose knife in the sink or whatever it may be. There's so many different things that they can get into trouble, and I don't want them going downstairs. So I actually have a tarp that I literally tie to the railing, but this basically, it prevents them from going downstairs. On top of that, I keep my door closed, my brother's door closed, and my mom's door closed. My room specifically, because there's so many things that they can get into and they want to go in here so bad. I feel so bad, but like I've got cactuses in my room. I've got a big open window. Like my curtains just don't really close anymore because I have so many plants on that wall. I've got like delicate glass that they probably would knock over. So basically my birds have the entire upstairs hallway and the bathroom to play in. Don't mind the mess, I literally just cleaned their cage, but I forgot to mention in the video that it is important to protect your carpet, because bird poop tends to stain like real bad. So I have these little, it's basically just cut up like tablecloth, like an old party tablecloth that you can get like at the dollar store. I cut it up and I used it for mats all around the room, so it just prevents them from pooping on the floor, protects the carpet. Now you want to make sure your bird has a good variety of toys and things in their cage to play with. So I'm going to go over what I have in my cage. Also, a couple of things are fairly new and they were actually recommended to me by some bird pages on YouTube, so thank you so much to people who have reached out to me and suggested these ideas. One of the things that is new to my bird cage is the platform in the corner of their cage. It was suggested that it gives them some like time for their like feet to like relax and rest instead of always perching, which I didn't realize. I didn't really think of that, honestly. I never knew that that they would need that, because in my head I'm like, oh, they're just like perched on branches all the time in the wild. Why would I never really thought of that? But I'm like, oh, you know, let's get one of those. I put it in the corner corner of the top corner of their cage, and they love it, especially Chico. She loves the platform. So thank you again for that suggestion. They absolutely love that platform. I'll probably eventually get some more at some point, but I spent like $100 and something on bird toys the other day, and like, okay, I gotta like ease into this. But yeah, so I got that. They also need various sizes of perches, so don't just get like just the straight perches, because I was told that that can cause bumblefoot, cause like basically irritation in the foot. They need to have branches that or perches that are like branches that have very, you know, jagged, not jagged, but like different types of ridges and textures for their feet fitness, basically. So you want to have various types of perches all around the cage. That being said, there's also other different toys that you can get, like ladders and other sort of things. Like I got them this little coconut with a ladder attached to it. They absolutely love it. I got this big ring of a it's basically just made of twine. It's like a circular ring made of twine that hung in their cage. They absolutely love it. They love perching on it. I think it just feels really nice on their feet. That actually wasn't a bird toy. That we found at like the dollar store, and it's literally just twine, and I use twine for like tying things and stuff in their cage because it's safe for them. I also learned that ropes, a lot of ropes that are actually made specifically for birds and said that they are safe, are not actually safe for birds because they put cotton in it, and cotton can cause problems. They can get caught in their throat, they can choke. There's a lot of issues with cotton, and also the way it is, like the pesticides that they use when they grow cotton, which, thank you again for enlightening me. Like sometimes you think you're doing everything you can and there's still things that you don't know, and I honestly am always open and welcome to any suggestions and advice you have to give me, because like as much as I have done my research, there's still so many things you don't know, and it's nice to learn from other people, because like you wouldn't think, like stuff that's literally sold at pet stores and like pet websites that are like, this is safe for your bird, it's tested, it's safe for your bird, but it's not actually safe for your bird. And it's just like, how do you know what to believe? So I've removed all cotton rope type toys from their cage. There is one rope on top of their cage, but they can't get access to it from inside the cage, and when they're out of the cage, they usually they just use it to land on when they are like going back and forth and flying, and I'm watching them, so I make sure they don't chew it. I also like to stick cardboard around the cage for them to forage. They really enjoy that. Chico will chew it up, and Lola will too, but Chico will put it in her tail feathers, and she'll carry it to different parts of her cage if she wants to make a nest. Are we gonna do some more flying? Are you gonna do another flying trick? Let's see. Let's see, buddies. Let's see your trick. Let's see your trick. Yeah. Let's see your trick. Yeah, it's my boy. I forgot to mention in my video, but cuddle bones are also super important for birds because it's really good for their beaks so they don't get too sharp and they don't grow over too much, basically. And also it has a really good source of calcium, so especially if you have a female bird that may lay eggs every now and then, and it's very important for them to get that calcium, so I always make sure they have a cuddle bone. My birds love bathing, and a lot of birds do love bathing, so if you can get yourself a bird bath, get yourself a bird bath to use. Get your birds a bird bath because they love to bathe. They'll probably dunk their head and like get their wings going in their actual water bowls, and which is fine. Like I'll let them do that, and then I'll just change the water after for them. But they also have a bird bath, and they can really get in there and get a good bath. They also love being sprayed, and I know that sounds crazy, but like if you have just like a spray bottle, you can get them at the dollar store. Just fill it with some not like super cold or hot water. I like to give something like a little bit in between, like if it just slightly cool if it's a hot day, or just like room temperature type water. And I just spray it like above them, and like it kind of just mists out, and they have a shower and they love it. Like Lola and Chico, they come right up to the front of the cage. They're like on the front of the cage and they're just like loving it. They're like, spray me, like I love this. They get so into it, and then they rub their beaks on like the side of the cage, and they love it. They absolutely love it. So I highly recommend doing this with your bird, especially if you see them like dunking themselves in the water bowl. They're like, they want a bath. Just try and give them a few like squirts and stuff and see how they react to it, because they'll probably really love it. I also wanted to add a few more comments and things about birds that I forgot to mention in my video that I think are very important. For one, I always have some blankets nearby because I cover their cage at nighttime. It helps them sleep, and just also keeps them warm in the winter time when there might be a little bit of a draft from the house. You know, I live in Canada, so I want to make sure they're very warm. First of all, I make sure the cage is away from the window at nighttime, but I also like to cover them up. But one thing to note too, if you are using blankets, is to make sure you're washing them separate from your other clothes if you use dryer sheets. Now, dryer sheets themselves are toxic, and honestly, probably best to just not use them at all in general. And I know that when I have my own household, I will not be using dryer sheets for that reason. But, you know, like, it's my parents' house, sometimes they use dryer sheets. So what I like to do is I just make sure that I put in their laundry in a separate load, so I don't use any dryer sheets in the dryer with their stuff. Another thing you want to note, so birds actually have very, very delicate lungs. They don't have the same sort of, you know, system as we do. So certain things can be very toxic for them. So one, Teflon pans. They're actually very, very dangerous. So a lot of non-stick pans are very dangerous for birds. So you want to make sure you're avoiding these. So stay away from Teflon. Teflon is a big no-no. You know, candles, make sure you're not using candles around your birds, especially like super high fragranted candles. So like there's some certain candles that you maybe you're using very far away from your birds, but still can produce a strong smell or, you know, a lot of smoke. So again, if you are using anything like that, try to do it very minimally, and also make sure it's nowhere near your birds. Make sure they're in a well ventilated area, not near any sort of smoke. And then also there's essential oils that are also toxic to birds. Make sure you're not, you know, wearing essential oils when you're handling your birds. I never use essential oils if I'm going to be holding my birds or if they're going to be climbing all over me. Also, like diffusers, again, make sure if you're using it, it's nowhere near your bird, and best to stick to oils that are safe for birds and not the toxic ones. Also, if you can get them some like outside time, like they'd absolutely love it. Larger birds, obviously you can get like, you can train them to use the little birdie leashes that have like the little, oh my goodness, what's the word? Hopefully it comes to me, but like you could do that. With smaller birds, you can't really do that so much. My birds wouldn't let me do that, at least not now. But what I do like to do is I'll put them in their travel cage, the like cage I use if I bring them to the vet or whatever it may be. It's also the cage I brought them home in when I first got them. I'll put them in there, and then I bring them outside and we'll sit on the porch or we'll sit under the tree in the backyard, and they love their outside time. Obviously I only do this when like the weather's really nice. I'm not going to bring them out in the cold. It is currently winter in Canada, so I can't do this right now, but they love outside time, like listening to the different sounds and getting some sunshine and fresh air. Obviously you don't want to keep them straight in the direct sunlight. Like I put them in the shady area of my porch, and then also make sure you have like water and everything that they need in the travel cage. But I like to do this for them, so whenever I am going outside in the porch on a nice sunny day, I like to bring my birds out with me as well. Also, like placement of the cage. If you can put them in a well-lit area, even with like a nice window, they're gonna love that. It makes me so sad when people keep birds in like a basement or a dark room. Like that's just gonna make your bird depressed. And I know some people live in like a basement apartment. Honestly, if you are like, if you already have a bird, I know that sometimes it's difficult, but if you live in a basement apartment and you're thinking about getting a bird, maybe don't do that until you are not living in a basement apartment. I have my birds in the hallway upstairs, and there are two really like nice sized windows there, and I put them in front of this one window where they get to see like the sunshine. They love the sunrise. It makes them so happy. And the cage is big enough so that I can get a good size of the portion of the cage in front of the window, but also there's a section of the cage that is against the wall, so that if they want to get out of the sun and they want something like a little bit darker so they can sleep or whatever, they have that option too. But I think it's so important that your bird gets nice lighting. Don't put them in a dark space. Like that's just gonna make your birds so depressed. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is feeding your bird. Obviously, you're gonna want to make sure you have a well-balanced diet. All right, guys, so bird diet update. So if you guys saw my first bird video, you'll know that I was feeding my birds the Supreme pellets. Well, the reason I was feeding them this food was because my previous avian veterinarian actually recommended it. I trusted her because she's a professional, but I guess you can't always trust the professionals, because I had some people comment on that video and reach out to me telling me that this is actually not the best food for them. Apparently it's high in sugar and has artificial dyes, and obviously I want to feed my birds the best food. So thank you to those who informed me on that. So actually one of the viewers that commented, she recommended Harrison's bird food. Now I hadn't heard of this, I hadn't seen it in the pet store, but I called around and a vet that's just around the corner from my house actually carries it. So I'm really excited. I'm gonna feed them this. Now this was $13 and change, which I was like, oh, it's less expensive than my other bird food. But I just kind of realized that I'm like, oh, this is a pound and the other one's 2 pounds. So I am paying more because this is only a pound. I'm gonna go through this faster than the other bag, but I mean, it's to keep my birds healthy. Look at little Lola, he's so cute. I gotta like zoom in on him right here. What are you doing, buddy? Look at him. I gotta get a clip of Lola here. What you doing, handsome? Are you trying to get on camera? Look at him. Buddy, are you excited? Anyways, sorry, I'm so easily distracted. I'm sorry the lighting's not the best. I really didn't want to like scare them with my studio light, so I'm just going off the natural light. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna take out their bowls and we're gonna mix a bit in with their other food. And what my vet actually told me is to slowly introduce them to it. So just keep upping the amount of this food and then less of the other food until they get used to this food. So yeah, we're gonna take out their bowls and start doing that. Okay. I know you want to play. Just let me get this done, okay? All right, so I actually, I didn't put a lot of food in their bowl the last time I filled it just because I knew that I was gonna be, you know, putting more of the other one. So we're gonna do that. If you're wondering why one side is filled and one isn't, it's because this side is closer to their perch and they tend to, sometimes they'll poop in this side. Not all the time, Pablo used to do that a lot, so it's not so much a problem now. But they also have other different types of bowls around their cage, so like it doesn't need to all be filled up anyways. Buddy, look it, I got your new food. What's that? Oh, by the way, it's my bird's 4th birthday today. It's March 8th and it's their 4th birthday. Yeah, it's your birthday. Do you get new food for your birthday? It smells yummy. What's that? Oh, you're okay. He's like, what is this? It is a little thicker than their other food. Now, my vet recommended the fine. I was like, are you sure I shouldn't give them the very fine? And they're like, no, the fine. I'm like, okay. But it is thicker, so I'm looking at the size. Really hard to see. But I'm looking at the size and it is bigger than the other food, so I'm hoping they're gonna eat it because the stuff isn't cheap. But I'm gonna mix a bit of it in. We're gonna get your other bowl. So I have like these on either side of their cage, so let's put some more of this one. Are you gonna try it, honey? It's your new food. I know, you're like, what is this? I hope you eat it. It's better for you. Oh. She's like grabbing it and then dropping it with her mouth. So I don't know, like she's just checking it out. Just mix that up. I'm also gonna take out their food wheel so I can mix it up in there. Oops. So they have this food wheel in their cage and it's actually really cool because it helps them like forage for food. So there's 2 holes and they can actually step on it and move it around and it gives them different sections of the wheel. They really like it. It gives them like almost a challenge to get the food out and it's really good for like stimulating their mind and stuff. It's really cool to have these types of toys in a cage. So yeah, if you're getting a bird, I highly recommend getting them some sort of foraging toy. So we're gonna put some in here too. Let's hope you guys eat this stuff. All right, we'll put this over here. So you guys can use your foraging wheel. Excuse me, sir, what do you think you're doing? We've got an escaper. We've got an escaper. It's Lola. He wants to say hi. You gonna say hi, buddy? We need like better lighting. Turn my camera light up. Hi, who is that? Can you say hi? Look in here. Can you say hi? Can you say it's my 4th birthday? It's your 4th birthday. Hi, birdie. What you doing, handsome boy? Anyways, the food has been put into the bowls, so that is the first step. We got them something better for them. We got something, yeah, we got it all set up for them, and hopefully it works out. Hopefully they eat it, and I'll keep you guys updated. But yeah, thanks again to everyone who recommended I try something different, and I'm glad I at least have something that's healthier for them. Like, if I had known that the other food wasn't the best for my birds, I wouldn't have been feeding it to them this whole time. But sometimes you're given the wrong information. So I'm just really grateful, and I'm glad that I posted about my birds, because I may have not have known like that. I may have not found out had it not been for you guys. So thank you so much for that. I do appreciate that. What's up, buddy? What you doing? What do you want to do? Do you want to go back? Want to go back in your cage? What's up? He doesn't know what he wants to do. But anyways, let's continue on with the rest of the video. Now, parrots, birds in general, can have a wide variety of different fruits and vegetables that are really good for them. But with that being said, there are a list of things that are not good for birds, that are actually poisonous to them or very dangerous. So make sure you are reading the good and the bad list to know what those are. Lovebirds, it's funny because I've seen so many videos online of people feeding their lovebirds like different fruits and veggies, and I have been trying since the very first week I got them as babies, and they just don't want to eat anything but the bird food. And I've put it in like a dish in their cage. I've like ate some myself. I'm like, and trying to show them like it's good. It's so funny. And Chica will come up to me and she's like just moving her mouth, like she's like, oh, she's eating something, like. And I try to give some to her, and she's like, what is that? Like, they just don't eat anything but their bird pellets. So I'll keep you guys updated if I ever get them to eat anything but their bird food. But I've had them for like almost 4 years now, and they just don't want to eat anything else. And it's just wild to me, because when we had the elderly parrot that we had adopted, Patrick, that passed a few years ago, he wanted everything. But he grew up in a family that fed him like a lot of fruits, veggies, and like occasionally they'd give him like a piece of, I don't know, egg or whatever it was. So he just wanted everything you ate, and you had to like ignore him because they're like, oh my goodness, I can't feed you everything, Patrick, you're gonna be fat. But my birds just don't want anything but the bird food. So, I mean, I'm not gonna force them to eat anything, but it would be nice if I can get them those extra vitamins from fresh fruits and veggies. But if anyone has any recommendations of how to get your bird to eat more variety of things, then let me know. But obviously I'm not gonna force them. I can't. Like, if they're not gonna eat it, they're not gonna eat it. If you have a bird or you're getting a bird, you might wanna try and see if they like it. But again, make sure you're doing your research of what is good for your bird and what is bad for your bird. Next thing I wanna talk about is having one bird versus multiple birds. So when I got my lovebirds, I got all 3 at the same time. They were all together, and I didn't want to separate them, basically. If you guys saw my last bird video, unfortunately Pablo passed away. I did share his story and what I think happened with that. Very sad. I miss him so much. He was my little buddy. He followed me around. He talked to me all the time. He was just honestly the sweetest little guy ever. So I just have 2 birds now. But what I have learned from having multiple birds is that they tend to flock together and they trust each other. So if you are someone who wants instant like relationship with your bird, you want your bird to come to you quickly, obviously it takes time to bond at any bird, but it's gonna take a lot longer if you have multiple birds, because they are going to be less trusting of you and more trusting of each other. So it actually took a long time for me to grow the bond that I have with my birds. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of perseverance of really like slowly and gently approaching them. You don't want to force them. You don't want to grab them. That is going to completely take away the trust that your bird possibly had for you. You want them to come to your hand themselves. So that was the route I took. I made sure my birds always came to me first. I never forced anything upon them. I never wanted them to feel uncomfortable, essentially. So the first few years I had my bird, it was very challenging because I let them out to play and I'm like, can you guys go back now? Because I don't want to grab you and you're not listening to me. And eventually they would fly in their cage because they were thirsty and they had to eat, and they always went together. So like when they all went in there, I'm like, okay, it's time to close the cage. But it was a lot of work. I am at a place now where they all come to me and it's really cool and we have a really good relationship, but it took a lot of time, and food was the best way to do that. Hand feeding my birds, the seeds, the treats that basically they only got when I hand fed them. When I hand fed them is what got them to trust me and bond to me. Now, if you have one bird, obviously the bird's gonna bond to you a lot faster because you're their flock, you're their tribe. They don't have other birds. But with that being said, guys, I don't recommend getting one bird unless you can give them so much attention, because that bird is gonna get so lonely if they're in their cage by themselves all the time and you're not paying any attention to them. With that being said, you really shouldn't get birds at all if you're not paying attention to them. Like, if just because you get 2 or 3 or 4 birds doesn't mean you can just ignore them and leave them in a cage and never let them out, because that's not right either, okay? So if you get one bird, make sure you are giving them so much attention, so much playtime, so much out of the cage time. At least if you have more than one bird, they can entertain themselves. I like having more than one bird because, you know, during the day while I'm working, when I can't let my bird out, at least they have each other to play with, do their own thing, and then at the end of the day when I can let them out, then I get to play with my birds, and it's really cool. But again, like, it really depends on you and what kind of time you have and the kind of person you are. But I think having 2 lovebirds is nice just because, you know, they're lovebirds, they're affectionate, they love the company, and it's nice to have, yeah, like, it's nice to give them the company when you are not around. If you are out of the house at work or whatever it may be, at least they have that companionship. But be prepared that it may take a while for them to warm up to you. Now let's talk about some behavior things. So behavior in general, but also behavior for the like different sexes of the birds. Now lovebirds are not one of those birds that you can tell what gender, what sex they are by the way that they look. Some species of parrots you can, but lovebirds are not one of those. And my breeder was really off, which kind of is concerning to me because he's a bird breeder, so he really should know these things, but he didn't. He basically said that, oh, it's the darker one is the female and the 2 brighter ones are the males, and that was completely wrong. He was right with Pablo. Pablo was a male, but Chico, which we thought was a guy, was actually a girl, and Lola, who we thought was a girl, is actually a guy. So I didn't actually realize this until after I had them for quite a while, and I could see their behavior as they became like sexually mature, basically. So Chico started laying some eggs here and there, and none of them have hatched, but you know, there was that, and then there was her nesting behaviors, and then, you know, Lola was on top of Chico one day, and I'm like, okay, well, Chico's a girl, Lola's a boy. We kind of saw that too. There was a little bit of competitive territorial behavior too between the 2 boys, and it never got like really bad or anything. The cage was big enough so they kind of just did their own thing, and at nighttime Chico would be in the middle and the boys would be on the end, so they all cuddle, but like Chico was always between the 2 boys. But yeah, so basically, yeah, he got it all wrong. So you can't rely on the colors of the birds to know whether they are male or female. You really need to do a blood test. This is the only definite way to know. Although, like I said, through their behavior, I quickly learned what bird was what. But yeah, so maybe, I don't know, when you get birds, hold off on naming them right away or get them a blood test, unless you don't care if you have a male bird named Lola, which I'm just like, I'm the progressive bird lady, okay? This is 2021. Men can be named Lola if they want to, right? Like, so the next thing I want to talk about is how much work they are. Now, I already mentioned that they need a lot of playtime, but lovebirds and birds in general, from my experience, are very, very messy. And if you're the kind of person who doesn't have the time to constantly clean up after your birds, then don't get a bird because they are a lot of work. One, seeds and poop and all the other stuff tends to fly out of the cage, and I don't know how they do it, and I don't know how the seeds end up on the other side of the hallway, but it happens. I have to vacuum around their cage like multiple times a day, like once in the morning, once in the evening, and then like a really deep vacuum once I move the cage and the blanket. I have basically a blanket under the cage because after we got the carpets clean, we're like, we can't have any more poop accidents that are staining the carpet. So I have to like move that and stuff, and I'll do like a really deep vacuum clean with like the little attachment on the edge of the wall and stuff, and I'll do that once a week when I clean their cage. So yes, with that being said, I clean their cage like a really deep clean scrub of every single toy. The bars of the cage, I have to flip it to get both sides of the bars because the poop, like it sticks on the underneath of it. Like I do all of that once a week. With that being said, sometimes they are extra nasty than usual days, and I'm like, okay, I do not want you stepping on that. So I will take the courtesy to get a cloth and some hot water and just make sure I wash that part of the cage right away so that they're not sitting in it or sleeping in it. So like you want to make sure that you're taking the time to do that. You don't want to leave your bird in a dirty cage. You want to make sure you are changing the water daily, sometimes twice a day. If they happen to poop or drop something in the bowl, you don't want them drinking that. So make sure you are taking the time to change their water. Make sure you are taking good care of their food bowl area. I check their food every single day to make sure that there's always food in the bowl, but also because sometimes they're nasty, sometimes they poop in their bowl, sometimes they drop other crap and whatever it may be, I don't know. Like sometimes Chico likes to build a nest in her food bowl and is literally covering the food. I'm like, Chico, why are we putting cardboard everywhere? But like, you know, I take the time to clean it out, right? Pablo was specifically really bad for this. He always pooped in like one side of the bowl because he'd like sleep in there, and I have to like every single morning I have to take that bowl out and wash it out, like deep wash it, because like just wiping it up or picking something up was not enough. It was so gross. I love him, bless his soul, but he was a little nasty. So your bird might, you know, have these kind of habits, and you have to make sure you are looking out for them. And as much as it's like a lot of work and a pain in your butt, if you love your birds, you'll take care of them, you'll take care of their space and make sure it's clean for them. So just so you guys know, having a bird is a ton of work, but if you love them, then you'll do it. Now, some people may wonder if lovebirds can talk, because there's lots of different types of birds out there, parrots that can talk and mimic humans. Now, lovebirds are not one of those birds that talk. So if you want a talking bird, you're not going to get that with the lovebird. They can kind of mimic different patterns and stuff. That being said, I haven't seen a lot of that from my birds. I've seen a couple like really amazing ones on Instagram, but my birds just mostly chirp, really. Now, there's different patterns I've noticed that they have when they chirp, which is really cool. And the more you're around your birds, you kind of pick up on these things. But they are really loud. So that's another thing to note, that if you don't want a loud animal, like a bird in general is probably just not the right pet for you, because birds are really loud. My birds chirp so loud, sometimes like crazy loud and constant. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like if I have a migraine, I'm like, okay, I need an Advil or something, because this is a lot. But they can be loud. They can be loud. But with that being said, I do love their chirping, and I think it's just like pretty and it's nice to have around, and having silence is just weird to me. But it's definitely different than Patrick. When we had our parrot Patrick, like he just starts screaming out of nowhere and you're like, why are you screaming? But he'd do things like that. Like parrots are just funny like that. But lovebirds, they chirp a lot. I noticed they have a different chirp for when they're like bickering versus when they're just sleepy versus when they're scratching themselves. They have this funny little chirp. They get like certain chirps when they're like really chatty and they're talking with you. Like Lola gets in these deep conversations with me and it's the cutest thing ever. It really depends on like what they're doing. Like their chirp kind of mimics that. And you might find that your birds have a slightly different chirp than each other. Like Pablo had such a unique chirp compared to the other two that I could be downstairs in another room and I'd hear Pablo's chirp and I know he's talking to me. Like I'd be like, hey Pablo, or hey Pobs, and he'd chirp back to me. I'm like, that's Pablo's chirp. So now, how much do lovebirds cost? Because I know cost is one of those things that you probably want to like look into before you own one. Now they can range anywhere between $45 to $200. When I got my birds, I got them all three at the same time. He like wanted to give me a deal because I was buying 3 birds. So I got them for $50 each. So came to $150 for the birds, plus the cage that I brought them home in. Bird food can be pricey too, especially like the higher quality you go, the more expensive it tends to be. Like one bag of the food is around $20. On top of that, like you want to get them a good sized cage. So I bought that cage. I can't remember how much the little cage was that I brought them home in, but like their big cage is like, oh gosh, I don't even remember, guys. I'll try and link it below if it's still on Amazon. You're gonna be paying a good amount of money for the cage. And for bird toys, guys, I'm not gonna lie, bird toys are expensive. Like it could just literally be like a little bit of wood and cardboard and you're like, how is this thing so expensive? But bird toys are really pricey, and unless you have the time to like make your own bird toys, which sometimes I'll do like little things for them, but I don't always have time to do things like that, and I don't have access to wood, and cardboard toys just go like this. You're looking at probably over $100 to like fill a cage with bird toys. I spent over $100 on bird toys just for their new stuff, and that doesn't include all the things that were already in their cage that I kept in their cage. Some toys last longer, some of them will go through really quickly. I do like to give them some toys that are like larger, like meant for larger parrots. Like I have this chain that has all these like wooden triangles on it, and I think it is meant for like a larger bird, but they still destroy it. Like their beaks are pretty strong, and it's really a really good chew toy for them. So that one, I mean, I think that was $20-something just for that. Like they're pretty expensive. So if you are on a really small budget, then probably shouldn't get a bird. So I'm looking at my notes and I think I covered just about everything. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about a couple other personality behavior type things. So I've noticed that my birds are they're very excitable, but they're also really easily scared by things. So just be careful that you're not approach them too quickly or too loudly, because they don't like that. They like me, my mom, they don't like my dad so much, because my dad's really loud and like he approaches them a little too quickly and they're like, who are you? Like, plus he's not around them as much, like they're so much more used to me and my mom. But like, please, like especially when you're bonding to your bird and they don't know you very well, like be very like soft and gentle and calm, because they'll like grow more comfortable with you than if you like run up to their cage and like throw your hand at them and be like, come. Like, no, they're not gonna come to you because you're scaring the crap out of them. Like, be gentle, be soft. And it's really cute because like the more they get to know you and your voice, the more excited they get. So like when I get home, I'm like, hi birdies, and they get all excited, and it's so cute when they get excited to see you. I think it's just like one of the most warm feelings that you get ever. It's just so cute, and I'm like such a bird mom. Like they're my babies. They can also be very fearful of different objects and stuff, and obviously every bird's gonna be different, but you don't get mad at your bird if they are not happy with their new toy right away, because they might be scared of it because it's something new and foreign to their cage. So my birds are like this. Like every single time I put a new toy in their cage, it could take up to like a few days to a week for them to warm up to that toy, because for them it's something that's foreign, it's new. It's like, what is this thing in my cage that was not there a minute ago? Like, it takes them a while to warm up to it, but like once they do, they love it. I think that's basically everything that I wanted to cover in this video. If you guys have any other questions, comments, suggestions, whatever it may be, make sure you leave those in the comments below. I'd love to read those. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and join the family. Let me know if you guys want to see more bird type videos. Let me know what you guys want to see, because I obviously want to make more things that you guys want to see and more content that you like. So let me know. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye, guys.